He's Tass. It's the Metzger Tassoul Show.
Tass.
There we go. Okay. I couldn't get my mic.
I needed my director to tell me where the mute buttons are.
Yeah, there you go. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. Are you in a gang now? Your eyebrow has some lines. It looks cool.
What are you talking about? This?
Yeah.
Dude, that's
No.
when I rolled my car.
Well, while all the viewers are joining us, tell us about
Tell us how
your car.
That was back when I was working I just transitioned from working a computer based I was doing like computer-based service stuff, right, for cash registers at grocery stores and things like that. And I was 20, maybe 21, and they wanted to put me in a sales position. So I started rolling in the sales position. This is back when you had the big full glass monitors for computers, right? I was doing that. I had my martial arts school, and then I was bartending at night. So I was doing literally I was working from 7:30 in the morning until typically 11 o'clock midnight, and then get up and rinse and repeat. So I was driving to a sales call to demo this software, and I fell asleep at the wheel on the highway and didn't have my seatbelt on, and came in oncoming traffic, sideswiped a car, went in the ditch. I literally the truck rolled end over end. And then you could tell after the accident. So I flew in the back seat. The monitor flew in the back seat, and that's where my face and the monitor, no comment, hit. And then I actually flew out the back of the Blazer. It was the Blazer I had at the time. And then when they came, they literally had because I had my uniform in the truck, right? So I could teach that night. And then they were putting the uniform on my face. Dude, I came out. I've got pictures of it. I'll have to show it sometime. My upper lip was literally, it stuck out past my baseball cap. I had the stitches in my eye, stitches here, some in my nose. I was thankful and lucky to be alive, to be honest. Yeah.
That's a great place to fall asleep, Tess.
On the highway with no seatbelt. Yeah, it was great. It was great. And then the worst part about, I was in a different accident before that, which it was raining out, and I pulled out. We just got done golfing, and a highway was going this way, and I was parked perpendicular at a stop sign. I looked left and right and left. It was just a 2-lane highway, and I pulled out, and I don't know if it was foggy window. I didn't see the guy, and he ended up hitting me, and then an RV hit us in the back. That was my mom's minivan. The side door popped off. Guy next to me broke his hip. I slapped him with the windshield. You think I learned to put my seatbelt on? But years later, I remember being at the grocery store, and a guy came through the line. He's like, this is years later. He goes, I always want to ask you, why did you pull out? I'm like, dude, obviously I didn't see you. That's the reason I pulled out, so we could get in an accident. It was just the most bizarre thing. So yeah, I've had a couple accidents in the day, Mets. Not good ones. Some pretty bad ones that I'm thankful to be alive, actually.
Unbelievable.
Whereas people run off the roads, they run into a tree, they end up killing themselves, right? Yeah, sometimes you got to remember and look back and count your blessings, man.
So that's interesting. The segue on for the show is, which two entities or organizations would you like to come to see together? Come together and maybe the automobile industry and the seatbelt industry.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
Driving, they came together, right? Because people would just be walking around with belts.
Oh my God, dude! I actually bought a Mitsubishi Eclipse, and you know the reason why? Because it had the automatic seatbelt that came on over you when you got in. That was the reason why. Yeah.
Very good. Do you wear your seatbelt every time now?
Most times. Okay. On the highway, I do. Yeah.
Do you take naps before you drive?
I still do that while I drive.
Okay. Do you have a Tesla?
That's the benefit of having a Tesla. No, I don't have one. And clearly my cars don't self-drive, because otherwise I wouldn't have gotten in accidents. And from what I've heard, Teslas don't work in Wisconsin, so I still have to look at that and figure that out. Which is
into that. All right. So anyway, how's school business?
How's the school business?
Yeah.
Oh,
overall, how's the school business?
Dude, listen, everybody thinks it's good, and it is good comparatively, but I've just had so many client calls, and good's not good enough, man. Like, we can be doing so much better. And I think if, like, for me, if someone hears this and they say, school's good, and I just say it's good, I mean, if I tell you that people have generated, 30,000 additional dollars for the month of, July as an example, that's just not good enough for me, right? I know, because I know what their potential is. So as an industry, we're crushing it, right? But as individual schools, there's a lot of room for improvement, based on some of the small things that we can be doing. So
Right. So anyway, everybody, this was a different kind of show today, right? A different kind of topic, because I've always said it, and you're exactly right, sir. Some people never learn the lesson. I think people learn the lesson. I think deep down people are afraid to move forward with the lesson. People don't have a lot. You have nothing really to lose to try something, if it's calculated, right? It's not like you got to revamp everything. If you just don't understand the logic behind a certain way of running your business, or if you feel it's going to be detrimental to your students, obviously don't do it. But it's the preconceived thought process that it's going to be detrimental to your business or to your students before you even understand what the process is. That's where most people are in the industry. But anyway, the topic of the show today is, I've said it all the time. I think there are a lot of organizations, a lot of consulting groups, a lot of different entities in the martial arts business that do well for our industry. And I think a lot of people, or a lot of these organizations, and some don't, by the way, but a lot of them support each other, right? Or throw out a testimonial like, hey, they're really great. But one of the things that I realize is nobody ever really, for the most part, there's glimpses, and I'll say this because there are people that will work with a group, and do something, and then they'll work with this group, but nobody comes together, completely together, as one specific focus and goal to really grow the industry. And I was just curious to think, what do you all think? Like, with all the different groups out there, who would you like to see really come together to where 2 groups or 3 groups or 4 organizations come together, where behind the scenes, they're having meetings every other week, talking about what they can do to better this industry? Are there any groups or organizations that you would like to see that happen to? Yeah. How about Maya and Raptor?
there you go.
Systems meet upgrade curriculum.
Mr. Kowalczyk's been waiting for this one. I love it.
Like, I got to sign on at this
Love
time.
it.
My
Love it.
opening.
Love
And you're right. Like, that's an example, right? That's an example.
it. For sure.
But anyway, don't you guys think that this industry would become more professionalized? And by the way, it's so hard to talk to our industry, because when I say stuff like that, some people will take professionalized as a negative. Right? I don't want to professionalize my martial arts school. That's not what the martial arts were for. By the way, the fact that we have 12 people watching this right now tells me nobody really wants to see anyone come together in this industry. I mean, if we talk about how long did it take to get a black belt, we'd have 70 people on here.
Or the old classic, do you charge for testing fees or not? Yeah.
Right. We'd have controversy. Next week we'll make it controversy.
That's part of the controversy too, right, Metz? I mean, you try and get some, and by the way, there's a lot of entities that would be very synergistic working together, and there are a lot that are working synergistically together, but sometimes not, and not most times not on purpose, right? It's just by default that there's a synergistic relationship between some of these entities. But you have people that just have different belief systems as to how you should run your martial art business, And, sometimes I'll say it, there's fluff in the numbers, right? There's fluff in the information that they're giving. And unless you really track stats closely and really can compare, here's a model versus this model, like, okay, let's talk about, controversial topics about month to month versus term, upgrades versus no upgrades, which school is going to generate more revenue and maximize their, I think both can be successful, right? But what is your goal? And I've heard you say this a lot lately, like, what is the result that you're looking for? Above and beyond, you want to create great martial arts students. That's a given, right? Like, that should be a given. That's what you want to do. And you want to have a big impact in your community and change your community and, develop and, whether it's more respectful kids or adults that can really, maintain a self-defense stance if they need to, right? Those are all great, important things. But at the end of the day, what is the end result? So are you doing that and you're going to pay out of your pocket 50 grand to do it because you believe in it so much? Are you going to do it and make 50 grand a year because you don't believe that you should nickel and dime your people and you should only charge $80 a month for lessons? Is your goal, you want to provide opportunity for careers for other people? Is it, and I think it's not just one answer, right? But I think there's a combination of those things. And you have to think, what is that end result for you? And then be able to go after that. And sometimes I think goal setting is way easier said than done, because I don't think people really know. They look to other people like, well, what do they want? And maybe that's what I should want, right? Like, if you said, well, what's your goal in the next 5 years? And some people don't know what they don't know. Like, some people are going to say, well, I want $1 million, in my retirement account. And while other people say I need 10 million, well, people say 10 million is not even close to enough the way the lifestyle I want to live. I have to have X amount, right? There's all these different things. And, and I found personally for myself that I had struggled trying to set goals. And unless you have that end result, right, you have nothing to go after. And by the way, here's, I think, the other important thing is the end result can change, right? Like, you can change the goal, but you have to have something to drive you to that level. And as you start to get there, if you realize, look, I'm going to hit this goal and I was wrong, it's not where I need to be, whatever goal it is, then you simply readjust and fix and adjust the goal, right? But you have to have something to pull you to that next level. And I think, that's the thing with the industry is, what do you want? What's your end game? And what system? And how can you get, if I'm playing a game, I want to be able to get there the fastest, right? That would be the goal, not take the longest. I want to compress the intensity. I don't want to work 40 years, make 40 grand a year and retire in a 401k, right? Like, I want to compress that intensity and generate as much revenue as possible, as fast as possible, all while giving great services, because that's expected in our industry. Those two things don't have to go hand in hand.
And when you think of the industry, when you think of our martial arts industry, everybody, you have CRM companies, website companies, consulting companies, product companies, curriculum companies, organizations, associations. We are so scattered, right? But it's like, what was it, 2 years ago, maybe, Tass, that I flew people in from different industries, if you remember, because I said, we got to figure out how to just come together to try to help the industry even more. And it happens in spurts, but nothing consistently where we're all on the same page. And now when I'm talking about on the same page, here's what I'm talking about, everybody. I was a struggling school owner, and my job is to help school owners maximize their financial potential in their business, the business side of martial arts. That's my focus and agenda, not only for the owner, but for any of the instructors, staff, and everybody else. That is what I try to do. But then there's some people in this industry, and I need to ask why. By the way, the people watching, right? Whoever's watching, you may not fit into this, but I'd still want to hear your opinions on what you think. Why is it, though? Why is it that two things? Number one, a lot of people in life itself, but in our industry specifically, feel you can't have one without the other. You can't have two. You can't be wealthy running a martial arts school with high quality students, or without being a sellout, or without going against the culture of martial arts. What is the mentality of our industry that you don't want to be frickin' rich? Like, what is wrong with being rich? What is wrong with that? Why is that a negative in our industry? Not for everybody. Not for everybody. And by the way, if there's other organizations on here or other consulting groups, you probably won't chime in, right? But if you were to chime in, you'd probably chime in something like that. Well, our clients, we don't see that in our clients, but you're talking about a fraction of a percent of people that you may work with. But as a whole in the industry, here's what I believe, and I'd love to be challenged on this because it's just a belief, it's a discussion. I believe everybody does want to be rich, but something stops them. Fear of failure, fear of the work they got to put in, fear of jeopardizing the quality of their martial art. Like, what is it? And why does that have to go? Why is being rich or wealthy as an instructor, not just an owner? I'm not just talking to owners. And rich is relative. I don't know what rich is. Is rich 50,000 a year, 100,000 a year, 200? I don't know what it is. But whatever it is to you, why is there such a negative battle? Why do I feel like I have to sit on here week after week and try to convince people that you should be very successful in business? And again, not just the owner, in your career. If you're an instructor, a program director, tell me where I'm off. Go ahead, Tass.
You and I have had this conversation, I think, a few different times, but on a different topic, right? So you talk about going to look at the parade of homes, or whatever they may call it in your area, what model homes, right? New homes, but they build the houses and you go look around at them, right? And we have had this conversation. Like, I love going to those because I go in and I get inspired, right? I get ideas, I get inspired. In the martial arts world, it's like watching a great movie and then wanting to go train, right? That's what going to these parade of homes and these model homes does for me. Is it gets me inspired to be like, all right, what can I do to help take it to the next level? So I enjoy that, right? And I have in the past, and I caught myself in the past, because we talked about this. There's some people that don't enjoy that will naysay it from the time that they walk in the door. And they'll walk into a place and there'll be 2 staircases going up the stairs, big, massive ceilings, all the things, and be like, yeah, this is just way too big. I mean, I wouldn't even want to clean this place. And like, they come up with all the excuses because it's easier to do that and not want it than it is to maybe want it and actually have to go through it. By the way, I'm using a house as an example, right? You don't have to have a big house, right? But if it's something that you want, wouldn't it be nice to have the option to get it if you wanted to? And you've always said that, right? Like, maybe for you, it's the car. Maybe for you, it's the lake house. Maybe it's the boat for you. Maybe it's, your philanthropy. I don't know what it is. And you want to give more, but sometimes it's not sometimes. It is easier to make excuses than it is to go actually get the job done and go get what you want. Right. And that's part of the challenge with people.
That's just being self-preserving, right? Because somewhere deep down you feel like I'll never be able to get here, so let me justify why I wouldn't want to be there.
And the worst thing that you can do is continue to tell yourself that over and over and over. And then when you have kids, you're going to project that onto your kids, and then you create a generation of people I don't want to go there, but that's what ends up happening, right? Is you're going to create that next generation of population that starts to think the same way you do, because this. I mean, kids typically are a representation of their parenting of their parents, typically, right? And that's just the wrong way of thinking. And I think this is where things like books come into play. Like, I'll never forget reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, right? And Rich Dad, Poor Dad says money is the root of all evil, right? Money is the root of all evil. And some of you guys might agree with that, right? And Rich Dad, different perspective, says, I disagree. The lack of money is the root of all evil. 2 completely different mindsets. And it's good to be challenged and challenge your thinking, because sometimes we don't even know why we have the thoughts that we have because they've been programmed in us for so long, right? And you got to get that, what Tony Robbins called the pattern interrupt, and something to shake you to figure out what can I do differently than what's got me to where I am now to get me to where I want to go, right? Because we know that's the truth behind it. You got to do something different. Doesn't mean you have to sign up for Elite or consulting, but what you've done to get you to this point is not going to get you to where you need to go next. And we all know that. If you look back at your track record of things that you've been doing in your school and how you've grown and what you've done, and sometimes this works in reverse, where you once were very successful and now you're back here. Well, what were you doing back here to be very successful? Just start repeating those things again, right? It's simple in concept. It's not easy to carry out. It's not easy to carry out.
And then Mr. Blackman posted, people are listening to hear the Golden Nugget, easier, not easier, better, and still have to grind. So the thing is I believe that in our industry, we see it. We see the numbers. When you have a product or a service that will do things for you, a website that will generate leads, a CRM that will just keep track and organize everything, we're all over that stuff. But if it's a consulting group, that's a fraction of what, because you got to work. I mean, the golden nugget is you got to work. But the secret to that is instead of floundering and working on everything, we have there's a pathway. Work on this area, do it this way, and you're going to get consistent results. But unfortunately, you got to work. I mean, if you want to be wealthy, you got to work. And let me say this about schools, though. I had a talk with a client this morning. I won't mention the name, but they were looking at a school that was going out of business in their area. And they were going to get their students because they had made arrangements with the other owner saying, we're going to be going out of business. So let me, you can have our students. Well, how many students do you have? 55. Okay, well, let me come over. Well, they don't have 55. They go, well, we had 55 at one time, right? That was the answer. They might have 20 students. By the way, 20 students. So this person, the client, goes over there. I mean, this is why our industry is freaking ass backwards, everyone. They go over there and there's classes, but the instructor has to leave at 6 because they got to go train. So people show up for class and they're like, well, we don't have an instructor for class today. And so the client says, I'll teach the class, ends up doing an hour private lesson for the one student. And then it is just unbelievable. And you wonder why we're going out of business, right? But my point is, in conversation, we have 55 students. You go and dive deep. Well, at one point we had 55 students. I mean, come on, guys. Now what do we got here? Our industry has to raise the bar and educate the public that what we provide is valuable and essential, 100%. And that's important. Just like fights, basics are the most important. Create the win, otherwise just luck. Mr. Brewster, did you read your comment?
Oh boy!
I love Mr.
Get off that
Brewster.
pool and give me that call. All right.
Mr. Walls, I think it would be nice to have a central organization with a board, code of ethics, training, of course, to help unify. For instance, the American Medical Association or something similar. Yeah, except Mr. Walls, the believe it or not, doctors and people have egos, but martial artists have bigger ones. And it's hard to tell a martial artist. Here's the other thing. I mean, it's the culture. It's the culture of the arts. trying to tell a martial arts master how to run their school as they're struggling to pay bills, as they're working 2 other jobs, but they still have such ego. Well, you're not going to tell me how to run my business. You know what I mean?
Right. You know, you can look at it from that perspective too, Mr. Walls, right? Like, I don't disagree with you. However, here's the thing. Why I don't disagree is because anybody can open a martial arts school, right? And that's part of what can have a bad reflection in the industry, because anybody can open it. They may not be great teacher. They may not be a great owner, right? And they don't have really anything to understand about martial arts. They may not even produce great students. And this is the challenge with this industry, is anybody can get involved, right? Anybody can own a martial arts school, put a shingle up and start collecting money and do whatever they want to do, which you can get a lot of bad, there's a lot of bad apples or bad actors, so to speak, that create problems for the martial art industry. Metz, you were in the health club industry. I was in the health club industry. Your mom was in it, right? How many times have you heard about these pre-sales that would exist in a basically a closet, a small place in a strip center? They'd put some folding tables and chairs up. They'd pre-sell a bunch of people. They literally close up and leave town, and a health club never even opened. I mean, those things happened all the time with health clubs, which is why health clubs over the years have gotten such a bad reputation, where I'm not signing up for a year because I don't know if you guys are going to be here. So I just want to go month to month. So this is what can happen in our industry if we're not careful, because they see martial arts school pop up and then it closes, and then this one pops up and it closes. And so when we say that we want the industry to be better, there is merit in the school down the street from you being better, because if they open and close and open and close, and now you have someone that's interested in martial arts, the perception, the community is you're probably going to close, because that's just what they've seen that's been happening within this industry, right? So we've got to protect it. We've got to make sure that we raise our standards. Yeah. And you got to get to a level where it's like in the workplace now. I believe in the workplace today, it is absolutely very easy to go from low man on the totem pole to manager in a very short period of time, because I see the work ethic. I see when I walk into a grocery store and I see a kid and he's on his phone, an employee, and he's literally taking something, putting it on the shelf, texting somebody. And by the way, I see that work ethic amongst in the whole store. Customer service, right? Horrible in some of these places. So if all someone wanted to do is like apply themselves a little bit and be better than, just a little bit better than average, they would crush it and they would rise to the top. I also believe the same thing is true in the martial arts world, unfortunately. If you just try and you plug in and you try to do some of these things, you're going to be better than 80 or 90% of the martial arts schools out there. If you follow some of these different systems, whether it's from us or other people, you're going to be better. And that's why we need to get the industry up to that next level, because as a whole, the industry is not where it needs to be. And by the way, that's on us too. I was having a conversation yesterday on the Core 4 call, and I was talking to somebody on there. He's like, yeah, and I don't know how old he is, but he's old. He's been around for a long time. And he's like, never even heard of Maya before. And I'm going, holy man, how have you not heard of Maya? Like, we've been around forever, right? And this is what we think in our own areas. Like, everybody knows about my martial arts school because I've been here. I mean, we think everyone knows about us, and we've been, in the industry for a long time. So take the information, execute, get yourself to another level. Don't be the black belt that has 30 years experience and you're just repeating the same year 30 times in a row, right? Actually grow and have some experience over time,
It's interesting, Tass, because if you remember the stat from years ago, the number one failing business in the United States were restaurants. Number two were martial arts schools. What do they have in common, everybody? What they have in common is there's no governing body where you got to go through schooling or get a license to open a restaurant. And there's no governing body or license to where you need to open up a martial arts school. You can't become a general contractor, just anybody, because I think I'm good at building homes. There's a test, there's licenses, that you need, licensing that you need. Not in the martial arts and not in a restaurant. You can just say, you know what, I think I make good pizza. I'm going to open a pizza place. And we fail. We fail because there is no governing body. Now, how do we establish that? That's very difficult because it has to be a law, and I don't know if that's ever going to happen where they require by law you are not allowed to open up a martial arts school unless you are licensed and you all completed the same criteria in order to do that. Therefore, we have an uphill battle with the mentality in our industry. And I think chefs feel that way too. Think about the similarities between a cook, someone who thinks they cook great food, a chef, and they want to open up a restaurant. They have egos too, right? And martial artists have egos as well.
Right.
And so then it's hard to teach people. It's hard to get them to understand that there's things, and here's what I tell people. It's not what you know that's going to stifle you in life. It's what you don't know that's going to stifle you in life. It's what you don't know. And if you understand that phrase, it's what you don't know that's going to hold you back in life. That'll open up your mind to where you start letting everything in to learn, right? Because you don't know. So whatever argument you have, well, we do it, we've been doing it. That's all the stuff you know, but it's what you don't know, right? That will hold you back. So that's an important thing. And go ahead, Tess.
I was just going to say, because there is no standard, organization or anything like that, right? Just because there isn't one doesn't mean you can't raise your standards, right? I mean, that's the thing. And I think a lot of people might be scared about if that ever did come down the pike. I mean, I'd say probably 30 to 40% of martial arts schools or more would actually have to shut down because they couldn't meet the standards. That's just me, because I really strongly believe that.
You're 100% right. A lot of people would fail the standard or the test. And the test couldn't be on any one curriculum, but there is no governing body. So here's the next question. What's more competitive? Just you being another martial arts school? Like you open a martial arts school. You all on here think you're the best martial arts instructor, right? I mean, and if you don't think you're the best, I would say, why not? So it's a catch-22, well, then why aren't you the best, right? But my point is what's more competitive? Competing with all the other martial arts schools or phenomenal customer service? Today, it is less competitive if you provide phenomenal customer service.
100%.
So you have an
edge. Stand above everybody. Yeah.
You would. You have an edge. So do you train more on your Aikido or your praying mantis Kung Fu or your Taekwondo to try to, I'm going to train so hard because that's going to help me grow my business? No, that's going to make you more proficient in your art. By the way, training in your own art doesn't even make you a better instructor. But if you want to do things that's going to make your business better and you refuse to get help or a consultant or a mentor or systems, here's my advice. Train in providing better customer service. And if you just do that, you're going to be more successful.
Dude, how many
Go above and beyond what your customers expect.
I think it's been every time, which has been, I think, 3 or 4, that I've been on a cruise. I always comment. As a matter of fact, my son even made a comment this last time. He's like, we were walking out of a room and they're like, oh, hi, Mr. Zander. Hi, Mr. Gavin. Right. And this is like the person that takes care of your room. And
yeah, and I was shocked that they called you Gavin.
I thought that was great. Right. But this is the person that takes care of your room. Right. And they literally just got done with a whole nother crew of thousands of people that they were doing their rooms. And it doesn't change for these guys. I mean, it's 24/7 for 7 months. Like, these contracts are 7 months. It's like you said, it's the same day for them over and over, but it's different people. But to remember that many different people on a daily to weekly basis over and over and over, it's because it's programmed in them. And guess what? We talk about that like, oh my God, I was walking around the room and they called me by my name. Like, and it makes you feel good. And that's just an attendant who's taking care of the bedroom, right? And clean the bedroom for you. That doesn't include the people where you go out for dinners and do all the things. So what are you doing in your schools, right, to make people feel important? It was the other day, and this is the power of relationships and knowing people. So, I was on the floor for 20 years in the school, right? So I started when I opened my first school when I was 20. I, pretty much by the time I was in my late 30s, I guess I was probably done on the floor full time. But I was at the gas station and I was inside, and in walks this dad, and I go, Mr. Vandermoss, how are you? And he looked at me, and I trained his kids when they were 7 and 8 years old, Brooke and Derek Vandermoss, and the mom's name is Connie, right? And I remember we'll put it this way, Brooke is now 28 years old. She's 28 years old. So this is 20 years ago that these guys were in my school. And he goes, I can't believe you have your memory. I said, well, of course, sir. I said, how are the kids doing? What's Brooke up to? Now check this out. This is the power of relationships, right? And remembering and taking care of your people and customer service, and not just being on the surface, but really caring, right?
He handed you a check for $5,000 and said, I want to.
No, 6,000. It was six. No, it was, he said, Brooke is now a principal. I said, really? Where is she a principal? In Kimberly, which is our hometown, right? Or neighboring town. And I said, well, that's awesome. I said, well, what school? He goes, Jansen Elementary. My kids went to Jansen Elementary, and I couldn't get into that school at that time. So now I have an in for Jansen Elementary, and I'm going to go and say, hey, how cool would it be if all the kids knew that their principal got their black belt, and you broke a board in front of the entire school? And by the way, let us help, be a partner in education with you guys. That's a natural in for me now, right? That wasn't the purpose of the conversation, but my point is that relationships over time and acknowledging people. Some of you guys as instructors, some want to go out when people are in public, they want you to come to attention and bow to you. Like, that's just weird, right? And others, if you don't even want to see your students when you're out in public. But if you acknowledge the people that you work with and train with, and you remember the people and you provide great customer service, some of these things come back around in time, right? And it's amazing what can happen. So anyway, I thought it was just an interesting story of just, great, because when I was on the floor, man, it was great customer service. You knew about these families and you were genuinely concerned. And that's what you have to remember. They're not a number. It's not just about selling a program. It's not about those things. It's about knowing your people and caring. Like, do you really have a passion and desire to help that child develop more confidence, right? Fernando Martinez, right? We call him Gucci because he always dressed to the nines when he was a kid. He was a teenage kid when he came in. He actually came in because he was being bullied in school, very low self-confidence. That kid, he's out in Vegas now. He is flourishing. He is crushing it. And he is one of the most charismatic 22-year-old kids I've ever met. But I remember that story. You talk about Aikido, right? They came in because they wanted him to do Aikido. And so this is, again, good customer service and understanding your business. Well, sorry, we don't teach Aikido. I would have never been able to teach Fernando. Fernando wouldn't have gained the confidence that he had. I can show you text after text after text about how grateful and thankful that his family has been. And I would have never had him as a student. So I said, okay, great. That's great. What is it about Aikido that you like? Well, we like that it's all about self-defense. Okay, well, that's pretty much every martial art, right? So they came in and they enrolled in the school, right? We have to understand how to nurture, how to get people in. And that's a relationship that has lasted since he's been a kid. I mean, he's still a kid at 22 years old, but he started when he was 9 or 10 years old. And now he's chatting with my son, and they're collaborating on things because they're both doing online ventures and all kinds of stuff, right? So this business can be very, very fun, very, very rewarding. And look, when you put systems in place, that's what can help everybody in your school.
But here, if you're an owner listening to this right now, you're probably like, well, yeah, I know all my students too. If you want to take things to the next level, though, it's everyone in your school should know every student and every parent. If you ask a student, an advanced belt student, to be on your leadership and help assist in class, they should know every parent and every student. They should greet everybody. Anytime they're walking by them, they should talk to them. It can't just be one person. It cannot just be one person.
That's correct. Correct.
I mean, but at the end of the day, look, who said it? And I apologize for not remembering who said it.
If it was brilliant, it was probably
might have been at Myacon, might have been the great Shane Tassoul. I don't know who it was, but I just want to make people feel better leaving my school than when they walked in my school. I want to make them feel better. But do we really make them feel better as an individual? Teaching a great class and assuming, well, they all had a great class. How was that class? Oh, it was a great class. For every single student, it was a great class. And what about the parents? Was it great for them too? Did they have a great experience? Do they feel better about themselves or their child or whoever it is when they're walking out? Like, if you can nail that down, you're going to grow. You're going to be more successful. People, you know, here's what you got to think about. How do I get my customers, and that's my students and parents if they're kids, to be talking about me or my company or my school at work the next day, tomorrow? How do I get them talking?
Can they be a walking?
You all do this. By the way, you all do this. If you go out and have a phenomenal meal somewhere with unbelievable service, you will talk about that the next day to people. Oh my gosh, we went to this new restaurant, or we went to this restaurant. The food was amazing. The service was out of this world. It's just what Tassoul just started talking about, the cruise ship and the service. And you've told people about that. When they ask, how was your cruise? What's it like? I bet one of the first things, before you talk about the frickin' beautiful clear water and the oceans and the excursion, you say, what's it like going on a cruise? You probably say, first of all, the service is just unbelievable. You're treated How do you get people talking about you? That's what you should have in your mind when you're teaching your martial arts classes, when you're running your martial arts business. And so we try to dumb it down by saying, greet your parents, your students every day, every class, right? We say that. Just say hello at least. Like, we try to dumb it down just to get you to the instructors and the assistant instructors to say hello to whoever's sitting in your lobby or in the parent area every day, every class. And then you start working on the presentation. Well, what are you saying? What more can I do? Build on that, but start small and just get better at customer service.
So let's listen to this. I was just looking this up because I remember this from the one class I paid attention to in high school. The average customer tells 6 people about a good customer experience, right? Conversely, 13% of customers who've had a negative experience tell 15 or more people. So think about that for a second, right? So if you think about, if you have a good experience, or if you provide a great or phenomenal experience at your martial arts school, they're only telling a much smaller portion than if you provide a bad experience at your school. And what's the fastest way? I think the term is, what's the fastest way to kill a great movie is, or a bad movie? What's the fastest way to kill a bad movie is great marketing, right? So my point is if you get in, you have great marketing, they get in, they have a poor experience, you're going to be closed quickly, right? So it takes work, man, and it does. It's unfortunately, people aren't going to say, when you have a great experience, less people are they're going to talk about it, right? About this great experience they're getting, and you'll get more of those types of customers. So if you don't like the clients and customers that you have, I'm just going to call it out, and you love the ones that you have, you need to attract more of those people, right? We say it all the time. Look, our goal isn't to be the best school in Appleton, Wisconsin, or in the state of Wisconsin. It's to be the best school in the nation. In order to do that, we need more students and families just like you, right? And we say that it's part of a referral program, right? But at the end of the day, no one's going to refer you people because you give them a card or a flyer if you don't have a relationship problem. And I heard this years ago, and it makes perfect sense. You don't have a money problem in your school, you have a relationship problem. And start creating more relationships. Too many times we get focused on the money will come. Like, don't worry about the money. But it's like when we talk about enrolling people, I'll give you an example. We talk about enrolling people, and a lot of you do month to month because it's just easy. It's simple. You want to do it. And some of you, when you have conversations, you come across from a place of scarcity. Like, I need to get this enrollment. If I don't, I'm going to have a hard time paying bills. I got this, I got that. And you come across from this place of scarcity. Whereas if you would just disconnect, be genuine, and come across from a place of abundance, like, it really doesn't matter if they do this or not. But look, at the end of the day, I know we can help change your kid's life and make it their best life possible. Like, that's our sales pitch. It's not about strong arming anybody. It's not about doing any of those things. But the more that you disconnect emotionally and that you believe in what you do, you're going to see your enrollments and you're going to see your customer service start to go up, because it's not a facade. They don't smell like a dog would smell somebody who's afraid. Like, I feel like they're just trying to get me to sign up because they need more students or they need more money. You put off that vibe, whether you believe it or not, you put off that vibe. So you've got to start coming from a place of abundance when you're talking with people. It will help you tremendously. And you do that by providing great customer service for people and genuinely caring about them, and everything else will fall into play. I remember you telling this, Matt, and I'll close with this, but you had talked about, we have all these systems and processes, the 7 steps to the upgrade process and so on and so forth. We don't need any of those things, right? Back in the day, if I was on the floor teaching, I'd say, Mrs. Smith, listen, we really got to get in the Black Book Club. They'd say, okay, what do we need to do? And they'd sign them up. Like, we don't need all of these steps. But why do we put the steps? Because we need to create the system to make sure that we're following through on those things, because we're trying to teach what we just did innately, and it was like the Matrix every day. But not everybody has those skills, and they shouldn't have those skills, because new people coming in that are employees don't have the experience, which is why you create steps and systems so we can get to that same result. But at the end of the day, that's the experience that you want for your people. Whatever they tell you to do, and I think Kovar says this, never use your influence for personal gain. That's not about that. You always do what's right for the family and what's right for the student, but it's by having those relationships.
Live this way. My biggest disappointment in life is letting somebody down. They may not like me, right? But if I tell you, if I tell a parent, hey, we're really going to help your child get confident and be a little bit more focused or whatever it is, or believe in themselves more, I don't want to let them down. Now, if I go about it a certain way that they don't like, it's not because I'm not trying in my own way to make sure that I accomplish that goal. But if I tell somebody like you all, if I tell you, if you tried out my elite and we are going to increase your revenue in the next 90 days by 50%, 30%, depending on what your numbers are, if I tell you we're going to do that, we are going to do everything in our power to make sure we do that. I do not want to let you down. Now, is it a guarantee that you'll do that? No, but it is a guarantee that it's not going to be because we didn't do everything in our power to get it done,
right?
To make you get it done, to get you to do it. And I think that's why when people call elite and they say, well, can I call some schools? Or I'll ask them, do you want to call current members or members who've quit? Who do you want to call and ask them? Why? Because nobody in 20 years that I personally worked with. Now, if you worked with somebody else, maybe, I don't know, but I don't think so. But nobody that I worked with will tell you, Metzger, when he said he was going to call, he called. He was there every time I texted him. Nobody can say that I wasn't. Nobody can say that. So I'll give you numbers of people who quit and get their opinions. Well, then how come you're not an elite? And they will have some kind of valid reasoning behind it. I just wasn't putting in the work. I, had a flood. I mean, I've had people had floods in their school. I had to move the landlord. I had to go do something. I mean, whatever it is, but that's how you got to be with your students. You can't just sign students up. And here's the problem. We have systems, right? What does martial arts help with? Well, we're an educational facility. We help with focus, confidence, discipline, respect. Sign here, sign up, give me your money. And then you just teach great classes, right? Not good enough. Not good enough. You got to go above and beyond. and make sure whatever you promise that customer, that you and your team are going to do everything you can to make sure they get the result that they want. Period. End of story. And if you do that, Tassoul said, the money will come. But guess what? I'll go on record. I want the money, but I do not want to let anyone down. I want both. And for 30 years, 31 years, I've been doing both, right?
Yep.
Now we want to show you guys how you can do both, and we want to make our industry better. And by the way, it's not necessarily better. I don't get it. I don't get the foul language, from people in the industry, the middle fingers from people. I just don't get that. I don't get it, especially posting publicly and this, like, that's so cool or something. I don't get it, because I don't care what martial art you're in. I don't think any martial arts represents that. Even some of the top MMA fighters that are martial artists. Now, there's some wrestlers that came up differently, but the martial artists, the MMA world, the Lyoto Machidas of the world that have reached the pinnacle, right? Some of the gyms that I've been in, right? They're the most respectful, gracious, nicest people you'll ever meet, right? You go to a point karate tournament and it looks like a fight will break out at any moment. It's like everyone's mean mugging. Guys, I guess whatever, right? Whatever you think, but
that's experience, dude. I think that's experience too, right? I think the higher level, right, like Laborio comes to mind, right? Like the higher level that you are, right, the more you're just more calm and relaxed. I remember I was with my Filipino instructor one time. I mean, phenomenal martial artist. He's like, "Oh, you do Filipino martial arts?" He goes, "Yeah, a little bit." Like, just like it was no big deal, just didn't really care, right? And the egos, you'd like to think, right, as you get higher rank, but it's based off the individual because personalities are different. But the egos you see them sometimes tend to, in the right person. It's kind of like money, right? Money makes you more of who you are. Maybe that's the case too with rank. Rank makes you more of who you are. Either you're going to be more of a jerk, or you're going to be more, you're going to be nicer to more people. I don't know. Maybe that's what it is. But in my experience, in the circles that I run in, the higher ranked the individual, typically, the less ego that you see from that person, right? But yeah.
Well, it's also money. People think money makes you a jerk and this, that. No, it doesn't. I mean, if you're a jerk to begin with, you're a jerk, and it's just more amplified when you have money. I think you have maybe a bigger voice, a bigger following, more respect. But we got to stop this stuff. We got to stop it. I mean, but again, there's no governing body, right? So if you want to start putting middle fingers and flipping people off and representing the industry and this, that, and the other, that's awesome. You're not getting hired in our company, right? And I don't think we're getting the respect amongst high-level professionals.
Right.
I don't think, right? And by the way, at the end of the day, it's this simple. However you portray yourself, is it going to help you or hurt you? Pick one. Could this help me or hurt me? Drinking, foul language, flipping people off. It's not going to upset everybody, but it can only hurt you. Because if you don't do that, whatever you're putting out there, people are going to like or not like what you're putting out there. And if you do that, I don't think it's people like it more. I don't think it can help in any other way. I think it can only hurt. But I don't even know how we got on. You know why I got on this? Herb Perez posted something.
Right.
You know what I mean? And like, here's an Olympic gold medalist. Herb's very opinionated, this, that, and the other. He has his opinions. But at the end of the day, he doesn't. I mean, you don't see him posting that stuff, right? I mean, it's just, how did this come up in this? We're talking about organizations coming together. Well, certain organizations wouldn't come together unless philosophies are similar, right? And I'll say it, and I'll end with this, and then Tash, you can end. But here's the thing. I will tell you, and you all know this, there are people with good integrity and good character in this industry. And there are people with low integrity and low character in this industry and know how to hide that and disguise it when they're trying to sell you on stuff. And when you get a peek behind the curtain, we see who those people are. We don't come out and start publicly bashing and putting it out there, but you won't see us do business with those people ever. So if you're a detective and you want to do deductive reasoning and go look back and say who was never on the Metzger Tassoul Show, who was never at a Maya event, you can narrow it down maybe and start thinking who are the people that maybe they feel. And by the way, I'm not an idiot. I know there's people out there that think I have low integrity and bad character. I know that, right? But there's a consensus with certain individuals and organizations, and that's a large consensus. But the thing is that's another reason why. And by the way, some of these people put out good products or services, but this is another reason why people can't come together. And I'll say Mike Dillard, the CEO of Century, said this, and this is a saying, but this is something he says often. You can't do good business with bad people. You can't do good business with bad people. Can like-minded individuals, whether they're good or bad, do good business? Sure, they can. They have a symmetry there. And if they have a good product or service, sure they can, right? But you can't. And the other thing that I'll tell everybody too is nobody ever went broke passing on a good deal. So like if timing is bad, if the people aren't right, even if the deal's good, pass, because you won't go broke passing on a good deal. You can't think of what could have been, because if you do get into business into a bad deal or with bad people or bad timing, you could go broke. It could cost you a lot of energy, stress, and everything else. So there it is. Go ahead, Tass.
Yeah, we didn't, maybe we didn't solve what companies or entities would unite, but I think we can all come to the realization, like as an industry, I think we need to unite and we need to raise the level of professionalism. And that's something that we can all do together, which is going to help lift the industry more so than any two entities coming together right now. It's about everybody having the same mindset of what can we do to be more professional and take our profession, our art more seriously, or have it looked more seriously upon by other people. And we've said all the time, perception is reality. So if the public's perception of the martial arts schools is, well, there's this problem and that problem and, child molestation issues, and there's this and there's that, and they close all the time. That's what's being put out there. Now, we can't control other people and what they do, but we can control ourselves and what our schools do and what we look like and how we want to raise that level of profession. So I think that's where we all need to be united as to, look, this is our goal. Our mission is to take it to the next level. And if there's places or organizations out there that can help you do that because they've been there before you, then look into that. And if that's something that's of interest to you, of course, do that. If not, that's fine too. But, there's lots of things that we can do to take ourselves to the next level. And a question that, you may want to ask yourself that Metzger asked me actually was coaching me the other day to ask this to a client. The question is sometimes we can say the same thing over and over and over again, and people understand it and they get it, but there's a mental block that's happening, right? And so if you can learn to ask yourself this question, what's the reason why? What's that mental block? Why wouldn't I do that? So you can give yourself an answer so that you can be able to overcome, if you can, right? But this is what I started doing. I actually started doing this with every client lately is, tell me what that mental block is. Is there a mental block? What is it? And then we start getting the honest answer as to why we're not doing things. Well, now we can coach that and we can fix that behavior, as opposed to, hey, I understand how to do X, Y, and Z. I get it. And you say, okay, great. But then it never happens. Well, why doesn't it happen? Well, because I just don't feel comfortable because of whatever the reasons are. And then we can fix that and coach that. And that's where the results come in. So even for yourselves, ask your question, what's my mental block? Why wouldn't I do that? What would be the worst that would happen? And then you can kind of have that conversation with yourself and get over it and take your business to the next level. So let's unite. Let's make sure that we're all raising the industry together and be professional and let's have some fun while we do it, right? Doesn't just because we're raising our level of professionalism doesn't mean we can't have fun doing what we love to do.
Very
That's
well
it.
said, Cass. Very well said. I love you, man.
I love you too, Metz.
Thank you, Cass.
All right. Did everybody jump off now so we can have a serious conversation?
Yeah, now it's not. That's just bull. I'm kidding.
That's right. No. All right. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you, guys, and love our industry. I love our industry. Just want to see everybody maximize their success. So thank you, guys, and we'll talk to everyone next week.